Thank you so much for joining us for our Inspire Conference Special Education Edition. We're so grateful to have you here to learn from our amazing and knowledgeable presenters. This session will be followed by a live Q&A period.
Hello and welcome to Inspire Special Edition. In today's session, we will be talking about supporting families, creating a home-to-school connection. I'd like to start by introducing myself. My name is Robin Lowell, and I am the Senior Manager of Accessibility for I2E, and I live in Issaquah, Washington. A couple of interesting facts about myself. I actually have an undergrad degree in marine biology and master's in education. I've driven the world's second largest container ship, and I was a distance education teacher for over 5 years at the Washington State School for the Blind. And if you need to get a hold of me, my Twitter handle is @teacherinthebox, and my email is also on the screen, rlowell@i2e-llc.com. And I'd like to introduce you to my co-presenter, Amy McCormick. So Amy, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Okay, thanks, Robin. My name is Amy McCormack, and I am currently a supervisor for the Early Intervention Early Childhood Special Ed program for the High Desert ESD, which is in Bend, Oregon. Some interesting facts, maybe not as interesting as Robin's, but I was a teacher of visually impaired for about 20 years. And then the last 8 years have been in early intervention, early childhood special ed. And then I got my administrative license, and now I'm a supervisor. I lived on a boat in Alaska for a short time. That was fun and interesting. And I'm learning to play violin as an adult, which I'm finding my brain is not as much of a sponge as it was when I was a child. You can reach me through my email at amy.mccormack@hdesd.org.
All right, thanks, Amy.
You're welcome.
All right, let's do a quick overview of what we're going to be talking about for the next hour. So we have 3 goals. The first one is creating an experience in remote learning that works for families, students, and staff. Goal number 2 is families as partners in students' learning. And finally, strategies to set up families and students for success during remote learning. And we'd really like to know who all of you are. So if you could, in the chat, which is the little speech bubble button in your toolbar, go ahead and click that and then type a message. And we're actually asking a very simple question. Where are you connecting from today? So let us know. And this is a pre-recorded session, so with live moderation. So we'll be answering and connecting via chat throughout this whole entire session. So feel free to ask questions, throw ideas out there, and we can talk about it throughout. And the last 30 minutes of the session today, we will actually be having live question and answer. So if you have a lot of questions, go ahead and throw those in the chat or hold them to the end, either way. All right, so let's stay connected. Just like I said, throw things in the chat and the posts, and we will just engage and see where we go. Another thing I'd actually like to encourage everybody to do is grab a piece of paper, notebook, either Word doc, Google Doc, what have you, but really thinking about things in an interesting way. So you can draw a triangle and write 3 important parts that you learned from today. Just write those down. Then draw a square. Write anything that squares with your thinking or anything you agree with. And lastly, draw a circle. Write down anything that still is kind of circling around in your mind or you still have questions about. And a lot of those we can answer during our question and answer session at the end. All right, so let's really dive into the meat of the content. So Amy's going to start out talking about family needs. All right, Amy.
Okay. So I'm going to talk about meeting the basic needs of family. I feel like the most important part connecting with families is to cultivate that connection and build a relationship with the family. I think when we first connect with families, we need to remember that they may have basic health and safety needs that have not been met. And in that case, I think it's more difficult for students to learn and for families to engage. So just making sure that there's a connection with how are they doing. So connect the families with resources that can meet those basic needs. Just some examples would be like the CDC, the Oregon Health Authority, your Department of Education or Ministry of Education. A lot of times there are resources available on those websites that will meet families' needs, such as mental health needs or financial needs. Also, try to connect the families with their community. There's quite a few community resources. For example, here in Bend, we have a resource called Central Oregon Disability Support Network. This is not only a local organization, but there's also a larger organization. Robin, you can go ahead and open that link.
All right.
So this is what CODSN's website looks like. And on this website, you can connect to the larger organization, which there would be statewide and nationwide. So these are usually in most local communities, they have some sort of disability support network that you can link to. Thank you. So also, we want to remember to think about what are the family's priority and needs in identifying family goals. Some of those goals could be technology, their social network, home supports they might need, the services they might be expecting from you. So maybe taking some time to even do a family survey to find out what their priorities and needs are. Okay, you can go to the next slide.
All right. All right, so thinking about those family needs and those connecting with our families, a lot of our families, and I'm sure a lot of parents who are listening in today, need translation service. The local language may not be their first language, and there is actually a lot of technology built right into the tools that we use every day in order to work on translation. For example, for Microsoft tools, translation is available for conversations using Microsoft Translator. And text translation, for example, you can do translation in Word and have a whole document translated for you. Captioning and subtitles. We have subtitles on this presentation, and using Microsoft PowerPoint Live, you can have captions translated in real time and being able to access all this information. You know, Google has a lot of great things too. Text translation, the translation app you can use on your phone, so mobile real-time translation, conversations, all of that information is there. Zoom has the opportunity to add interpreters to the meeting, which is a really great feature to just be able to have that real live translation. And the Bloom's platform can auto translate content as well. And so on the screen, I have multiple links that will be available on our Wakelet at the end of the session. So you can get all this information at the end of the session, and you can have access to all of it. So translation is something that is easy to mitigate, and it's a way to decrease the barrier of allowing our families to connect with the services and learning that our students need. So being able to give them these tools and for families to know where to find them is an imperative to make sure all of our students can access and our families can access everything that they need to. All right, so now we talked about those basic family needs. So I want to move into some materials. So thinking about, we've connected with our families, we have programs set up, but getting the content to our students is just as important, because we talked about translation. So thinking about translating and in language, but also we need to make sure that their environment, that the students get the materials that they need in the format that they need. So let's talk about some of these different things. So accessible content, making sure our documents are accessible. So I think it's really important thinking about all of our students, that when we send information out to the families and out to the students, that it has gone through accessibility checking. Even if that student that is getting the work may not need an accessible document, a family member or a caregiver might. And so we don't know exactly who our end audience is. So we need to make sure everything is accessible for all people who might look at that, whether it's someone who's low vision or blind or blind, that they can access it. Videos, including captions and descriptions, is critical, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, what that looks like. But all videos should be captioned and giving everybody equal opportunity to access this material. Thinking about our physical materials, visual schedules, which Amy's going to talk about later on, and I'm really excited about that. Materials found and manipulatives found around the home. There's a lot of opportunity to use things that students already have for a variety of reasons. One, they're familiar with it, they're comfortable with those things that are in their home, and they might be excited to be able to use their, well, I don't know, their stuffed animal or their blocks or things they have around them that they're really comfortable with, to be able to access different things, and also adding on those other layers with multiple modalities in order to really start to understand concepts by being able to touch and feel and hear and see, and using all of their senses. So let's think about delivery. You know, we can work with our families, and families can work with the teachers and ask questions of the setup of the student's workspace. And we'll dive in later about that, and then scheduling. So I wanted to give an overview of these 3 different areas that it's really important to make sure that we're addressing, to make sure our students are accessing their learning. So these things need to be thought about not only from the teacher side, but also really from the family side too. Is the content accessible for my student? And how do I know if it is or not? And how can I, if I can't get it adapted right away, what can I do in order to help my student access this, and being able to do some adaptations or modifications or whatever, just from home? And it's very possible to do that. You just have to know where to find the information, which takes us to our next slide. So really checking for accessible content. What does that actually mean? So thinking about things, alternative text, and I'll show you what alternative text is. Checking the reading order. So if a child is using a screen reader, making sure it's going through a presentation, or a PowerPoint presentation or Google Doc or what have you, that it's reading it in the correct order so the student really can understand the context. Slide titles is something so a screen reader can jump through those. Header rows, so it's easier to navigate. And then also text contrast. And let's actually look at what this actually means. So I'm going to open up a different PowerPoint presentation. And so here I have a PowerPoint presentation on kinetic and potential energy as written by John Doe. So great, I have a PowerPoint, but how do I know it's accessible for all of my students? So I'm going to go ahead and start and look at this. So when I click on the review tab, we have a whole bunch of tools here. And the one everybody is very familiar with is spell checking. But there's a lot of things to do beyond spell checking. So, oh, and really interesting, we have the translate button right in the review tab. So you can actually translate your document, like we were talking about before, right in PowerPoint, right in Word, all these different places you can translate. And I'll actually, if we have time, I will show that during our question and answer at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and click on check accessibility. So I have a pane that opens up on the right. And what it does is the accessibility checker goes and scans through my entire document, whether it's a Word doc, whether it's a OneNote, your Outlook, it'll go through any of the Office apps, and it'll go through and ask the question, is there anything in here that may be difficult for someone to access? So let's go through what it looks like. So we have errors. So this is telling me that there are errors in the document that will make it not work for someone. So alternative text. So the alternative text is the description of a picture. So I'm going to go ahead and click on where it says picture 3. So we have a picture down here and it says potential energy. And so this picture has no alternative text on it. So that means that a screen reader is just going to say picture or image and not give us any more important information. But how do I know how to change that? So we have a little tab down here to the right, and it gives me recommended actions. So I can add a description, or I can mark it as decorative. So when something's marked as decorative, it adds no value to the slide itself or the content. It's just like a pretty picture. So I'm going to click add a description. And when I add a description, I can then type in what this picture is all about, which is so that way when a screen reader will know exactly what this is all about. All right. And then I have one that's missing slide title. And so it tells me that I have a slide title missing, and then I can go add that in again for a screen reader. Hard to read contrast. So I have a slide here that has a purple bar across the top, and the text color is almost the same as the bar. So you can barely read it. It says kinetic energy, but there's a lot of people who will not be able to read that. So instead, you need to change that to make it work a little bit better. And you can do all those actions right in the accessibility checker. So there's a whole bunch of information there that makes your documents easier for someone to use. And so as a parent, as a family member, if your student is not able to access something or things are the contrast, run the accessibility checker on your own and just check your work and see what needs to be changed. And there's also information of why to fix it and the how to fix it, which is really important. So we all need to get into the habit of creating documents and whatever we send out, that it has been checked for accessibility so everyone can access that. All right, so I'm going to close the accessibility checker, and I'm going to close this PowerPoint, and we're going to go back to our other PowerPoint slideshow. Okay, so that's creating accessible content. Now I'd like to actually talk about what does accessible video conferencing look like. So we're all on Zoom meetings, team meetings, Google Meets all the time, and our kids need to be able to access it. And so what does that look like? Use captions on all videos. That is something that's really important. So Teams meetings, PowerPoint itself can actually have captions. There's options to just turn the captions on right in PowerPoint. I'm actually going to show you what that looks like. So this is our slideshow. And under slideshow, I'm going to click always use subtitles. When I click that on, and then I start my slideshow again from the current slide, below the slide, when I'm talking, subtitles will automatically pop up. So this is a great way to just keep subtitles going as you're talking, and it's just easy to do. All right, so I'm going to turn these off because there's other ways to do subtitles as well. And all right, from current slide. Oops, not from that slide. That's the beginning. We don't need to start from the beginning. Let's go back to where we are. We are on down further on this slide. Okay, from current slide. There we are. So captions can be added right in YouTube. There's auto captioning right in YouTube. You can do captions from Stream, Microsoft Stream, and then you can edit them right in the program, which is nice. So you can listen and edit those, make sure they're all accurate. So captioning videos is something everybody can do. It's important to keep slide design simple. So we don't have a lot of visuals on our slides, maybe a picture. So it's really important. So if somebody is using the captions and reading the captions, they have to read the content on the screen as well. So trying to read all the screen captions and read all the content is really challenging. So there's making sure your audio track and what's on the screen, you give the students enough time to be able to access both of those. So include audio descriptions when the audio isn't enough to describe the content on the screen. One thing that's really important is keeping a conversational voice. So, don't try to speak too loudly because, well, nobody likes to get yelled at, especially during class. So keeping your voice conversational, like you're talking to somebody, for a few reasons. One is when you speak really loudly, it tends to distort your facial expression and your facial cues, which a lot of kids rely on to be able to understand emotions and context, and as well as it just feels better when it feels like somebody is talking to you as opposed to talking at you. So that's why you keep it light, conversational, even if it's an important topic. It really is helpful. Good lighting is important. How often do you see speakers if there's a window behind you, you're not gonna be able to see your facial features, and they won't be able to get those cues or see what's going on, or it feels like it's a disconnect because they can't see your face. Giving viewers enough time to process the information is really important. So you're thinking about it, so you're not just whipping through all the information going, I have to get everything done. But if it's not enough time to process, or if they're trying to do a manipulative, working with the manipulatives and then also processing, give everybody enough time, decreasing stress and anxiety, giving them time to process. And remove flashing content, because that can be a trigger for a lot of kids for seizures, whatnot. Okay, so we've already talked about a lot, and so I'd like to take about a minute and either do triangle, circle, square, and write and answer these questions. What can I do to ensure that my student or my child has the materials and technology and tools that they need to access their learning? Who can I talk to? And what do I need to learn more about this? What else do I need to learn? So take a minute, write it all down, and then throw some of your answers in the chat. And I'm excited to hear what other people have to say. So I'll start the timer and go ahead and get started. All right. So now let's move on to our next topic. And Amy, will you talk a little bit about setting expectations?
Sure. All right. So the next piece we're going to talk about helping families set expectations. So the first thing that we want to really do is make sure we're clarifying with families, like what are your expectations as a teacher, and helping them to set expectations for their child. Starting with expectations that are clear and concise, making sure to include both audio and text instruction, kind of like Robin was talking about earlier, using their different senses to get information. I think having instructions located in the same place each time will help parents, help them to have a structure to their child's learning. One of the things that we used when we first had to close down the schools and work from home during COVID, is we developed a Wakelet for our families. So that they had all the information in one place and because they were receiving information from a lot of different people, occupational therapists, physical therapists, teachers, and so on and so forth. And so I think parents were getting a little too much information and getting overwhelmed. So we try to put our information into one place and provide them with a link. So this is what our Wakelet looked like. And we used that. So our speech therapists could add a Wakelet that talked about speech groups using some ideas that had videos, live videos, and links, and just resources from YouTube. So these were some ways that parents could connect easily and quickly to resources for their child. We also provided Wakelets that to our Department of Ed as we were talking earlier about providing resources for supports for families for financial needs or mental health needs. And we also had a resource directory for our specific location in Central Oregon. So this was a great way to have families be able to connect in one place. I think it's important to help parents ask clarifying questions. Sometimes I don't think families know what to ask teachers or, to direct their child's learning. Here's a link Robin's going to open up. It's called Edutopia. It provides some ideas for questions that parents can ask at a conference with a teacher or just a conversation with what to expect for their child's learning. So this is a good link to be able to look for some ideas to help families become prepared when having a meeting with their teacher. Okay, thanks, Robin. The next thing would be to make sure to connect with families, determining what is the best way to connect with families. So a lot of the families that I've worked with are all very much younger than me. So a lot of them definitely use text. So we've found that families, we connect better with families when we text, but it might be email or, a family communication app. That's something we've decided to use recently. We've been using Blooms with our families so that we can all connect and again have things in one place. And then setting up regular parent check-ins, whether that's through text or through an app, but connecting on a regular basis. And then the last part is, I can't see the bottom of my screen. Robin, do you going up just a little bit?
Oops. Oh. So that's integrating learning into family routines.
Thank you. So if you help families to integrate what the child's goals and educational outcomes are into a routine, then I think it'll be much easier for a family to be able to meet those educational expectations for their child. So, for example, there could be a cooking activity that could help a younger child be able to learn basic numeracy. And then also for an older child, you could reinforce a science concept. So that's a way to incorporate some learning into their daily routines. Okay, I think the next slide, Robin.
All right. All right, so we're going on to finding the balance. Amy's going to tell us about that.
Finding the balance. So finding the balance between screen time and how we learn, when to take a break, when to use other tools other than screen time. So the first thing I have on here is a link to recommendations by the American Psychological Association. And Robin, thank you. So this just gives guidelines for families and for teachers to remember about promoting healthy technology use for children. So it gives guidelines for different ages of how long children should be engaged in technology. So for example, it said for children 6 and up, consistent limits on the time spent using media and types of media. So I think it's important for teachers and parents alike to just be aware that there should be limits on screen time or taking breaks and just having other activities and ideas for learning. Okay, we can go back to the other slide. Making learning interactive, even with the distance and in class learning, the teacher should be providing materials, providing parents maybe with a list of materials that they can use during an activity so that they're prepared when you've connected via remote learning. Finding objects in the home, so suggesting objects that families can use in the home to incorporate into their learning. One of the interactive learning tools that we've used is called Boom Cards. Boom cards, a lot of our speech therapists use these. The Boom cards allow the child to interact, not just watching the screen, but they actually have some control. And they would, for example, use their mouse to finish the word that's on the screen, the example there, pup. So they would drag the U into the middle space. And so there's all kinds of these ways to interact have the learning interactive with the student. And these boom cards are, there's hundreds and hundreds of them. They're a great resource. And then the last thing, acknowledging that families may be overwhelmed, validate that with families and provide them with ideas for how and when to encourage students to direct their own learning. And then again, emphasize the importance of routines. I think if parents have an expectation of a routine and they've provided a daily routine for their child, then that child will adjust to that routine and know that during the time, say between 10 and 11, that they'll be doing some interactive learning on the computer, or it'll be story time, or whatever has been designated for that routine. So, okay. So to reflect on those last two slides that we talked about, what are some ideas of how teachers and parents can build a remote learning plan together that meets both the educational outcomes and the family needs? And the other one is, what resources do I as a teacher or parent have in my community that will support my child or student as a teacher learning needs? So maybe put some of your answers in chat, and we'll give you a minute to reflect on those.
All right, I think that's about a minute. All right, okay, so let's see here. The next section is staying organized, and my name's at the top, so I'm not sure if that's telling me I need to stay organized or maybe it's a command. We'll see. Okay, so let's talk about some tips for staying organized, because this is one of the biggest issues, and this is a big struggle in my own house. So thinking about ways to actually stay organized can be a real challenge. So one thing that I have found, and I'll show you about this in a minute, is creating rules so emails automatically get sent to a specific folder. I have 3 children of differing ages, and trying to sort through the, numerous emails every day, that I can't get on top of it. And starting really this year, after years of trying to figure this out, I'm going to make rules. My example is curriculum night. So last week we had curriculum night for 2 high schoolers, which means I have emails coming from the high school for 2 different kids for 7 different classes. So that's 14 different Zoom links that came to me for curriculum night, which is on one night, and each class was 10 minutes. So I had to be able to organize and find all of these links in order to get from one class to another. So I created a rule in my email that said anything that has the words curriculum night in that, send it to this folder. So then on curriculum night, I clicked on my folder, all of them were there. Create a folder system, either your OneDrive, your Google Drive, organize any documents or anything that were sent to you. It's really important so you don't have to search them. But a really great feature in Windows 10 is you can do the search down at the bottom with the little hourglass, and it'll search all your documents for you. So if you can't find it, throw it in the search, which is really great. Get to know the learning management system that your school is using. For example, Canvas, there's a parent access part. But take some tutorials online and learn a little bit about the LMS so you can help your kids, but also understand how it works and how you can get information out of that. Papers have a tendency to overtake a lot of people's houses. They just seem to multiply. So create a physical folder system in your home to keep papers from taking over. One thing that I have done is I've gotten some in and out boxes, so just little flat trays that I have my 8-year-old put all of his papers there because he's walking around and drawing, putting them all in one spot. So at least we know to go back to, there's no organization in it, but it's in one spot. And that has been such an amazing time saver and stress saver. So that's another tip. Okay, creating a folder system in Outlook and Gmail. So let's talk about what this looks like. So I have a, this is a screenshot of an email account for my kids. And we have these folders. So I have one for the high school, I have two, one for each kid at the high school, the overall high school, one for the elementary school, and one for the district. And then you can see all these emails for QIHS. Anything that has to do with her classes goes right into that folder. So she has 12, and this is my account. This is not hers. This is just what's sent to me as a parent. So I can see, and I can say, okay, you have 12 unread emails for Q. What does that mean? And I go look and see, is there missing assignments? Or is there something I need to do? And this is really about helping me to keep her on track. So I'm not trying to chase down what she's doing. I can actually have a good handle on what she is doing day to day based on the emails that I'm getting. So it's a really great way to just manage all of this. So for time's sake, I'm going to, actually, let's see here. I'm going to just open up my Gmail account really quick. Okay, Gmail. Hopefully it will open up my account. Okay, here. So I have an account, and this is Gmail. So how do you set up these folders? It's easy. There's lots of tutorials online. So I'm going to search for an email that has 901 in it. So then I click that and it searches. Okay. And then I can do this little arrow on the right, and it has the words 901 in the sub. There has the words 901, and then I can create a filter. And so I can apply a label. So that means it's labeled. So then it goes to this specific box, and I can choose a label, and I want it to go to my Canvas folder. And I click Canvas, create folder, and then from now on, any email that has 901 in it will not go into my inbox, but it'll go directly into this Canvas folder. So now I've already put everything that has Canvas in there, and so it'll keep building. But it's a really great way to just get everything into one spot, and it's really easy. Then you open your email, and it's already all filed for you. All right. Okay, so that's creating folders. So those are just a few organizational tips. Now let's talk about strategies for independent work. And in my experience, especially, having been a distance education teacher, and I was at the distance, and my kids, some of them were at the school, and some of them were all over 5 different states of the Western states in the U.S. And working independently without being in that classroom setting can be really challenging. So in my own home, having an elementary school student who is trying to manage this while I'm working is really, really challenging. And so I've had to come up with strategies to really help keep him on track and going. And the biggest thing is engaged and not getting disheartened about having to work independently. So one thing that I've started using a lot is timers and reminders. So there is, if you go to, either the Windows Store or the Apple Store, there are tons of different kinds of timers that are available that you can download. And timers should be based on how long a child should be working on a task. The teacher set that information a lot. Like today, our teacher said 15 minutes on Lexia. Okay, so I set him a timer for 15 minutes. And timers can be really anxiety inducing for some kids. And so you can actually, you know, how do we work around that? So you set the timer for yourself. So that way you don't get distracted by something else. You set the timer for yourself, and if 15 minutes is up, then you can go in and talk to your student and say, okay, your 15 minutes is up. But even if it's not a direct use with the child, at least we're keeping on track, and they start to get to know that was 15 minutes and saying, I'm going to set the timer, but I'll come in and tell you when, relieving that anxiety or stress about it, so they can really just focus on the task at hand. But I also know a lot of kids who love the timers. They function better having, okay, how long am I going to be working on this task, and having no end in sight can be just as stressful as having a timer going. So you really have to just figure out what works for your child and look at it from those different ways. And my child sets timers for every single thing he does. So timers work really well in our house. And using a Pomodoro timer, you know, and being able to include breaks. So up on the screen, I have a picture that this timer is set for 25 minutes. So when you start it, and then alarm repeats, you can choose how many, for how long, and then there's a short break, 5 minutes, or a long break is 10 minutes. So you can set these breaks in there, which is really fantastic. Stopwatches, you just see what works for you. And one thing that, you know, it's like giving our kids the agency, giving them voice and choice, the opportunity to choose the alarm sound. Okay, we're going to set a timer, and it can be the most obnoxious, awful sound, but if they like it, let them do it. Just give them that ownership over the timer, and let them choose that sound. And like I said, some children like to see the timer and some do not. So actually, that's just like, okay, we're using a timer. This is great. Either have it on the screen where they can see the countdown, or it's just they know to stop when it ends. So there's a lot of different opportunities to look at the timers in different ways. So what's the setup? What are some ideas to really get the environment working well with what you have? And have a dedicated place to keep all materials together, not necessarily where the student's going to work, but we have a picture on the screen of a 3-tiered cart. The top cart has all of the supplies, crayons, glue, pencils, pens. The middle is all of the workbooks that the student will be using, and manipulatives are in the middle tier. And the bottom one is where all the paper lives, and the computer cord lives there too, so you can always find it. And what's really nice about the rolling cart is at the end of the day, I can drag it through my house, or he can drag it through the house, and we collect all the items back to where they need to go, and then we're ready for the next day. So it's an easy way, and it's also building those self-reliance, organization skills, because they know where their stuff has to go. And so it's not just piling up on the desk, which is really important to keep your workspace clean and not so cluttered for distraction, and so you can just really keep on task with what you're going to be doing. Having multiple places so the student can work. A desk isn't always the answer. Excuse me. Not every child likes to work at a desk. My daughter, when she was in 2nd grade, and I was volunteering in the classroom, and the best thing I ever heard, this one student was having a hard time staying in his seat, and the teacher said to him, just please stay in the vicinity of your desk. And that was a light bulb moment for me. And it's like, yes, this child cannot sit in their desk. The desk is not the right place, but please be near your desk. I mean, he was still working and cutting out his stuff. He just wasn't in the chair. So like, here's an example. There is child sitting at the desk, you know, looking at on his Zoom meeting, and then the next time, in the next hour or so, is sitting on the bed, still connected to his class, but is in a different location, and then was moved someplace else and is now laying on the dog and reading a story. This is during an independent work time, reading a story with the dog. And actually, there's so many opportunities and much information about, children reading to pets is really great. And so he's reading out loud to his dog, and the picture shows the dog looking at the screen. So clearly the dog is just as excited as he is. But again, engaging with another being, because he has nobody to read to but his parents, but reading to his dog is a favorite thing. And then sometimes you end up with this. They're just really done. And back at the desk is a giant stuffed animal instead of the child. So he was done with the day and decided to just be done, and the sock monkey took over for him. So really thinking about how we can avoid the stuffed animals taking over for the child is giving them the opportunity to move around, giving them the opportunity to have some choice in where they're learning, if they're able to function, if they're able to focus, and but giving them that agency to have some ownership over their learning. All right, so creating a schedule, and Amy's going to talk a little bit more about this and show us this information next, and I'm really excited about that. Create a visual schedule that a child can glance at. Ensure that the student's schedule works with your schedule too, and you may not be able to be available for the child, but if you know what you're doing at the same time as your student is, then, in the back of your mind, you could be like, okay, you need to be on your Zoom meeting, or you need to be, working on your reading, or that kind of thing. So just being able to mesh your schedules. Another thing is, if you can, build in lunch together. Take that time, put your technology away, and just sit and have lunch, because students' lunchtime is engaging in conversation and being social. So if you can create an opportunity in your house to have somebody eating lunch with the child, whether it's a sibling or whether it's a parent, but giving that social opportunity every single day kind of gives that schedule and routine you were talking about earlier. Put your schedule in your calendar. So I showed you how to put in making rules and folders, but also put these things in your calendar. I get pop-up reminders. Student needs to is independent work time, or is going to specialist. So that way I know what they're doing and I don't have to try to remember it. The length of the tasks, task engagement should be age appropriate, and we'll look at a slide in a moment all about that. And at the end of okay, before I start with that, I've been working from home when I taught from home for 5 years, and I've been working at home for the last 2. And this is really important. At the end of the day, put school and put work away if you can. Be done with the school day. Just how the kids at school, they go through the routine of putting all their things away. They put on their backpack. They put everything in their backpack. They put on their coats. Then they get ready to leave school and come home. Create those same routines at home. Like at the end of the day, we drive the cart around. We make sure we have all the school supplies back in the cart, and then we put it away. And we are done for the day. And I think a lot of adults really need to do the same thing, especially since we're all working at home. If we can put our work away, then we're more engaged with our children after school. Or if even if you work later, that's fine. But when you're done with work, be done with work and be able to engage. It's really important that your kids know that you're done and that with work, and they're done with school, and you can engage. Another thing is create a little stoplight, whatever color that looks like in your community. Red, do not disturb. So put a marker on the red. I'm busy and I can't be disturbed unless you're on fire, or unless like the house is burning down. Do not disturb. Yellow, I am busy, but if you need an answer right now, come on in. And then green, I'm working, but come on in and we can chat. So they understand the level. And it took me a while to figure this one out, where my student was just coming in all the time and it didn't matter. But as soon as we came up with this system with very clear expectations, okay, I feel comfortable going in and asking, and then I feel more comfortable with them here, and we can engage appropriately. So really that's just those ideas about creating a schedule. Attention spans by age, and this is a great resource that Amy found. And I mean, and we will put a link to this in our Wakelet at the end. And so they're very different, like 2 years old, 4 to 6 minutes at a time. That's their attention span. All the way to 16-year-olds, 32 to 48. It's not 8 hours or 6 hours or however long your student is in school. That these are the lengths, and that those breaks are incredibly important. So having that schedule and having your student know where they need to be when is really important for you to know and your student. All right, moving along. Okay, now we're going to kind of break it down into younger kids and older kids. So Amy's going to tell us about the younger kids.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to say that I wish I had a socks monkey, because I think day of Zooming, I would love to put a socks monkey on my chair, I think. I'm sure a lot of us would at this point.
Yes.
So I'm just going to talk briefly about some of the tools we can use when working with the younger kids. I think probably one of the most important would be providing that visual schedule. I think that, teachers can provide these for families. Families can figure out their own schedule or incorporate both. You can find pictures online. You can take pictures of things around your home and then write down what, if it's wake up, get dressed, breakfast, brush your teeth, time to do a Zoom, whatever the schedule is. I think these are crucial for kids, and it really helps them stay on tasks. And again, you can incorporate the breaks, outside time, TV time, whatever games into that schedule so that they have breaks throughout the day. I think, again, like Robin was mentioning, the timers, and Robin, I'm glad you mentioned that some kids don't like to use timers. So, but for the ones that do, I think using timers for beginning and ending activities, a couple of the pictures here show a sand timer. You could actually use a sand timer, or get an app that maybe shows a sand timer. Same thing with the countdown timer is the other picture. That would be another, probably, again, you could get an actual countdown timer or use an app that shows a picture of one. I think those are, for some kids, they need a timer. Another thing you can do with some kids is at least use the verbiage of, first we're going to do this school activity, then you can take a break, or then you'll be able to watch a short show for 30 minutes. So using those words like first and then, I think helps kids too. Thinking of simple daily activities to help build skills, thinking of, throughout the week, what can be done to, for example, let's say a child has multiple goals they're working on. Some of them might be writing, which is kind of a fine motor activity, or maybe it's more of a gross motor activity. You could have different activities through the week to support building those skills. For example, Make It Monday. That could be something where they could be creative. It could be a fine motor activity. It could be something related to one of their activities from school. Get Moving Tuesday. Have the kids maybe take a walk, but during their walk, they could be asked, say for a younger child, find everything that is green and label those objects. And again, just anything that would work, not only what's happening with your schedule at home, if you're taking walks, if you're going to visit grandparents or whatever, that would work basically anywhere that would incorporate and build some of those skills. Okay, thanks, Robin.
All right, thank you. All right, so those are the younger kids. Let's talk about our school age kids. And so these are just some ideas. We've talked a lot about all of these and just kind of putting it together. Stay organized, help your kids stay on track, stay on time, be where they need to be, and finishing their work and turning it in. Keep on top of emails and school communications. They come from so many different sources that using systems to be able to not miss something. Create a dedicated place to work with flexibility to work elsewhere, as we've seen. And so they have their go-to spot. Take breaks, go outside or do a non-techie activity. A lot of, recesses are built in, and again, helping with that routine and those expectations. Okay, recess time, and depending on where you live, let's go outside and like Amy just said, same thing as the younger kids, go out for a walk, go, throw a ball around. There's a lot of opportunities there. Stay in communication with friends during lunch and breaks. And this is that social piece is critical for them to be able to connect with their friends and talk about whatever it is they want to talk about. There's a lot of opportunities there to really have those connections. As students really into Minecraft, there are a lot of social groups out there that you can connect with to play Minecraft with other kids, or just play Minecraft and connect, however, a computer, Xbox, whatever, so that they can play together and talk. And I have my older child was in middle school. Well, my middle child was in middle school last year, and they had a book club. So they would read, and then they'd get together on a Zoom call and talk about what they read. And they played Dungeons and Dragons online. And it was like, there's a lot of opportunity to still do all of these social things, regardless of where you are, and just connect technologically. And they'd walk around with their phones and go for a walk and talk to their friends. So, but again, keeping their bodies moving and keeping active, and not just being sedentary, sitting in front of a screen, because you can still talk to you can walk and talk and connect with your friends that way. Don't be afraid to ask questions. If you're not sure about something, ask away. Your teachers would rather have you ask than you start to fall behind more and more because you can't access something, you don't have a piece of technology or what have you, but just ask the questions. And our older kids, have them ask the questions, get them to ask those questions of their teachers, send them through the learning management system, send an email. But it's really important that they start advocating for themselves. Even from upper elementary school, they can email their teacher and ask those questions. And the last one for me is really build fun into your day every single day. Bring joy, whatever that looks like in your family. Do something fun, play a game, sing a song. Just find something every day to bring joy and enjoyment into your life. All right. Okay. All right. So this has been a really, really challenging time, and let's talk about what some of the silver linings of remote learning are. You get to be engaged in your students' learning. You know what they're doing, and you start to learn more and more about what their strengths are and what their areas of need are, and so you get to really learn more and see your kid and your child in a different setting. We're creating opportunity to take learning out into the community and home, because at the end of the day, all the school and education is really building our students to be ready for the real world when they're done with school. So they're having way more opportunity to take it out of the building and see it in action. We can foster deep relationships between staff and families. And Amy, do you want to talk about that, since you've been really connecting with families since it started?
Yes, we definitely have. And I think it has fostered not only a deeper relationship, but we've seen parent engagement increase because we've needed to connect with families and with staff. And I think we've worked more collaboratively since COVID's happened. So, I think we found ways to figure out what families' needs are. And I think it's built better relationships.
Absolutely. So which goes along with supporting families in different impactful ways. We can find ways that we can connect with students that we haven't been able to before, like being able to see them in their homes and seeing where the families need help to support their children, and with that, discovering the areas of need that are not apparent in the classroom setting, that you would never know if you didn't connect with the student in their home or talk to their families about what's going on in their home. So there are some silver linings to remote learning that are hard to find, but we have to find them. All right, and so as we wrap up, there's so many, we talked about them, accessibility tools built into all of our technology. Microsoft has a ton, Apple has a ton, Google. There's all these different things in there that we can really leverage to help our students learning and every day. And what's really nice is I think students, and Amy and I actually shared a student years ago down in Bend, and he made me think of this, this kind of just this phrase, and it's students would rather go without than stand out. And he was the prime candidate for that because he didn't want to be different than any other kid. And the more opportunities we have to use technology that's built into mainstream technologies that everybody's using, the better. Our kids don't they don't feel like they have something that's separate or different, that these technologies are all built into the same computer that your neighbor has. So thinking about that, there are a ton of great resources that all these different tech companies have. Education.microsoft.com is a phenomenal resource of a lot of information that you can go get and to learn about all the resources that are out there, and pedagogy too. Apple has accessibility. There's a lot of theirs is apple.com/accessibility, what they have available on their platform, and same with Google. There's all the information there. Go learn for yourself and see what technologies are out there to help your child or your student really be successful in this remote setting. All right, well, thank you so much, everybody, for being here. You'll get a survey in about a week after this event, but now we're actually going to switch and go to a live question and answer. So be ready to come off mute, put your questions in the chat, and we'll see you in a moment. Thank you.
Thank you.